Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're the show that takes that pile of sources you've got, pulls out the key insights, and basically gives you a shortcut to knowing what's really going on. And today, we're tackling something that affects absolutely everyone. Aging. It's this incredible journey we're all on. But here's the thing. Right off the bat, there's this weird contradiction. You've got this global anti-aging industry. It's enormous, getting close to, what, $300 billion globally, selling everything from wrinkle creams to, I even saw age-defying protein pancakes.
Age-defying pancakes. It's a massive number, and it really points to this big disconnect. Our sources show something like, well, 60% of older Americans are actively trying something for anti-aging.
60%? That's huge.
It is, but, you know, when you talk to the actual scientists leading their research in this area, they'll tell you the vast majority of the stuff people are buying, it's just not backed by solid science.
Wow.
What happens so often is you get these genuine scientific breakthroughs, maybe in a lab, and they immediately get sort of grabbed by sensationalist media or, you know, people trying to make a quick buck.
Right, the profiteers jump in.
Exactly. And it creates this huge gap between what's being marketed and what actually works.
Which is precisely why we wanted to do this deep dive. Our goal here is to cut through all that noise, all that hype, and get straight to the evidence. Because, I mean, let's be honest, the stark truth is that aging itself, it's the biggest risk factor for most killer diseases. Heart disease, cancer, stroke, dementia.
Yeah, pretty much all the big ones. You can almost say aging is the leading cause of death, fundamentally.
So the goal isn't just, tacking on more years at the end. It's about slowing down the aging process itself. Imagine, like, if a 65-year-old could actually have the health profile, the cellular health, the disease risk of someone, say, 58 years old.
That would be incredible. That kind of shift, our sources suggest, could potentially cut their risk of death, frailty, disability, maybe even in half. And the thing that really kicked off this whole deep dive for us, it was this insight from a consensus paper by top anti-aging researchers. They identified these, like, essential pathways for tackling aging deep down at the cellular level.
Okay.
Things like inhibiting IGF-1, that's a growth hormone, or blocking an enzyme called mTOR, which is like a master switch for cell growth. And as we looked into it, we had this kind of aha moment. Every single one of these crucial pathways, you could actually regulate them, not with some futuristic drug, but, well, through your diet.
Through food, really. All of them.
Pretty much, yeah. Influenced heavily by what we eat.
Okay, let's unpack that because, a lot of people worry constantly about their genes, right? Like, oh, it's in my family.
Right, genetic destiny.
Yeah. But the twin studies tell a really different story, don't they?
And
only maybe 15 to 30% of how long we live is down to our genes.
Exactly, which is mind-blowing when you think about it. It means the vast majority, like the bulk of our destiny, in terms of health and longevity, it's actually shaped by our lifestyle choices. It's stuff we can control.
So if we want to tap into that potential, we need to get what's happening inside our cells. You mentioned AMPK and autophagy.
Yeah, let's start there. AMPK.
Yeah.
Think of it as activating your body's conservation mode. So, when resources are a bit scarce, or maybe when you're exercising, AMPK ramps up. It tells your cells, okay, let's be more efficient. Let's tap into stored energy, like body fat.
Right.
And a key thing AMPK does is trigger autophagy.
Autophagy. That sounds technical, but it's basically the body's cleanup crew, isn't it? Like cellular recycling.
It's a great way to put it. Yeah, it's this very organized process. Your cells identify old, damaged, or just worn out parts. Bits of junk, really, and they break them down and clear them out.
Get rid of the waste.
Exactly. And that waste, if it builds up, directly contributes to aging. So autophagy is like this deep cellular cleaning, a reset.
Okay, makes sense.
Yeah.
So how do we boost this amazing internal janitor system? Exercise, you mentioned.
Oh, exercise is huge. Yeah. The data suggests you can see AMPK activity nearly triple within just 20 minutes of something like cycling.
20 minutes, that's fast.
It is. But here's something else that's really fascinating. There's this common drug, metformin, primarily for type 2 diabetes, right?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
It also boosts AMPK. And some studies have found something pretty startling. Diabetics taking metformin might actually live longer than non-diabetics who never had the disease in the first place.
Wait, longer than healthy people?
Potentially, yeah. Which really makes you think, doesn't it? If a drug for an illness seems to have this broader longevity effect, what does that mean for everyone else?
That's a huge question.
Yeah.
Okay, so exercise, maybe metformin. What about diet? You said diet could influence these pathways.
Absolutely. Diet offers some really accessible ways. You can directly activate AMPK by consuming vinegar, for instance. Acetic acid does the trick.
Vinegar, like apple cider vinegar?
Any vinegar, really.
Yeah.
Or you can go the bottom-up route with fiber. You eat fiber, say from beans or whole grains, and your good gut bacteria ferment it. They produce short-chain fatty acids, including acetic acid, which then gets into your bloodstream and activates AMPK.
Ah, so that's why fiber is so important. It's feeding the good guys.
Precisely. And for boosting autophagy specifically, certain food compounds help. Things like spermidine or chlorogenic acid, that's an antioxidant you find in coffee.
Coffee. Okay, good news for me.
Yeah. But on the flip side, something like acrylamide, that stuff that forms on, say, potato chips or burnt toast, that might actually suppress autophagy.
Right, okay, avoid the burnt bits. Now, spermidine, that name sounds interesting, but you said it's like an anti-aging vitamin.
It really acts like one. Our levels naturally drop quite a bit as we age, like by more than half by our 50s, but studies in mice are pretty incredible. Giving them extra spermidine extended their lives by up to 25%, and they were healthier too.
25%, wow. And in humans?
In humans, higher dietary intake is linked to lower blood pressure, lower risk of heart attack, stroke, vascular death. And interestingly, this seems to hold up even when you account for overall diet quality.
So it's doing something specific, but are we getting enough?
Well, that's the thing. The average intake in the U.S. is really low, maybe 8 milligrams a day. A healthy target seems to be more like 25 to 30 milligrams.
Okay, big difference. Where do we find it?
Best sources are unprocessed plant foods. Mushrooms are good, some fermented foods, but the cheapest source by far, wheat germ.
Wheat germ, the stuff they take out of white flour.
Exactly. It costs like 2 cents per milligram of spermidine. And fun fact, a lot of those pricey spermidine supplements you see online, they're often just wheat germ in a capsule.
Huh. Good to know. Okay, next up, zombie cells. Sounds ominous. Senescent cells.
Yeah, senescent cells. Back in the day, a researcher named Leonard Hayflick discovered that our cells don't divide forever. Human cells typically divide about 50 times and then they stop. They enter the state called senescence.
And that's good.
Initially, yeah, it's actually a good thing. It's a natural break to prevent cells from dividing out of control, which is, basically cancer.
Okay, so what's the zombie part?
The problem is what they do after they stop dividing. They don't just sit there quietly. They start spewing out this cocktail of inflammatory molecules. Scientists call it SASP, the senescence-associated secretory phenotype.
Inflammatory stuff. Not good.
Not good at all.
Yeah.
This SASP creates chronic low-level inflammation all through your body. People call it inflammaging.
Inflammaging, okay.
And this chronic inflammation is tied to a whole list of age-related diseases. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, osteoarthritis, even, ironically, helping cancer tumors grow later in life.
Wow, okay, so these zombie cells are causing trouble. Can we get rid of them or stop the inflammation?
Well, yes, potentially. Nature provides. There are compounds in foods called senolytics, basically, things that help clear out these senescent cells. Quercetin is a good example. You find it in onions, kale, apple peels.
Apples.
Yeah, there was this cool mouse study where they gave mice the equivalent quercetin dose of about 1 small apple a week. And it reduced their senescent cells, improved their health span, less hair loss, better heart function, more endurance.
From the equivalent of 1 apple a week. That's amazing.
It is pretty amazing. There are others, too, like fistatin, piperlongumine, found in various plant foods.
Okay, so diet can help clear out the zombies. Let's shift gears a bit. You mentioned the epigenetic clock, the idea that aging isn't set in stone.
Right. We tend to think of age as just the number of candles on the cake, but our biological age can be different. And the really cool thing is it seems somewhat reversible, or at least modifiable. Think about a human egg cell. It can sit in an ovary for decades, right? But when it's fertilized, its developmental clock essentially resets.
Ah, interesting example.
Yeah, and remember Dolly the sheep. People thought she aged prematurely, but that wasn't really the case. She died from a common sheep virus. The cloning process itself didn't necessarily accelerate her aging clock in that way.
Okay, so our biological age isn't fixed, and diet influences this quickly.
Incredibly quickly. There was a study where men ate a high-fat diet for just 5 days. And researchers saw changes in DNA methylation. That's how genes get turned on or off across thousands of genes. 5 days.
Wow, that's fast.
It shows how responsive our epigenetics are. And a key nutrient here is folic acid, or folate, the natural form you get in beans and leafy greens. Folate is a methyl donor. It helps manage those genetic switches, but unfortunately, a lot of people don't get enough folate from their diet.
Beans and greens again. Okay. What about AGEs? You mentioned those earlier.
Oh, yeah.
Advanced glycation end products.
Right, AGEs. These are nasty little compounds that form when sugars react with proteins or fats. Especially happens with high heat cooking. They build up in our bodies and contribute to aging and disease. You find really high levels in, well, high heat treated meat.
Like grilling or frying.
Exactly. And also just generally in animal foods high in fat and protein. Surprisingly, poultry can sometimes have more AGs than beef. On average, meat has something like 150 times more AGs than fresh fruits and vegetables.
150 times. Okay, so how do we dodge these AGs?
Well, first, stop smoking. That's a big source. Then, avoid the worst food offenders. Think bacon, hot dogs, heavily browned meats. Focus on lower AG foods, fruits, veggies, whole grains. Cook with lower heat and more moisture. Boiling, steaming, poaching are better than grilling or frying.
Makes sense. Raw nuts and seeds better than roasted.
Generally, yes, for AGEs. And choosing foods that don't spike your blood sugar as much, lower glycemic foods, that helps too.
Okay, let's talk about IGF-1. Insulin-like growth factor 1, connection to cancer.
Yeah, it's a really important one. IGF-1 is a growth hormone, essential when you're growing, obviously. But in adults, high levels can promote unwanted cell growth, including cancer cells. What's fascinating is that people who live to be 100 or older, centenarians, they tend to have naturally lower IGF-1 levels. And cancer risk actually drops off significantly after age 85 or 90.
Interesting. So where does IGF-1 come from?
Mostly produced by the liver, and the main trigger for its production, protein intake, especially animal protein.
Animal protein specifically.
It seems to have a stronger effect. It signals cells grow, multiply, which is great for a kid, but maybe not what you want as an adult trying to slow aging and prevent tumors.
And can we change our IGF-1 levels with diet?
Dramatically. There's data showing just 11 days of cutting way back on animal protein can drop IGF-1 levels by 20%. And at the same time, it boosts levels of a binding protein that grabs onto IGF-1 and stops it from signaling growth that went up by 50%.
In just 11 days.
11 days. And get this, they took blood from people before and after that dietary change and dripped it onto cancer cells growing in a Petri dish. The blood after the diet change was 30% better at suppressing cancer cell growth.
That's incredible.
It really is. The researchers even made the point that something like 3,000 hours in the gym couldn't match the cancer cell killing effect seen in the blood of someone just walking regularly and eating a plant-based diet because of this IGF-1 effect.
That really puts diet's power into perspective. Okay, this connects back to inflammation too, right? Inflammaging.
Exactly. That chronic, low-grade inflammation that creeps up as we age. It's linked to pretty much everything bad. Reduced survival, worse physical function, cognitive decline, all those age-related diseases. CRPC reactive protein is a common blood marker for it, and it's a strong predictor of lifespan.
And diet can fuel this inflammation quickly.
Oh, yeah. Dietary cholesterol and saturated fat, especially palmitic acid, which is high in meat and dairy, are major culprits. Sources show they can literally double inflammatory markers within hours after eating a single high-fat meal.
Hours. Wow. What about nuts? They're high fat.
Good question, but nuts consistently seem to be different. Studies show they don't increase inflammation and might even lower it slightly.
Interesting. So what fights inflammation?
Fiber. Hands down, fiber is probably the single most anti-inflammatory thing in our diet. It feeds those good gut bacteria we talked about, and they produce anti-inflammatory compounds like butyrate.
So an anti-inflammatory diet is basically...
It's basically centered around whole plant foods. The evidence is really strong. Studies show huge drops in CRP, like 33% in 8 weeks on a fully plant-based diet, significantly better than standard heart-healthy recommendations.
What about fish? Omega-3s.
Fish seems to be kind of neutral on inflammation compared to plant sources of omega-3s. The theory is maybe industrial pollutants in fish counteract some of the benefits. So key anti-inflammatory foods: beans, lentils, berries, leafy greens, tomatoes, especially cooked, sodium-free, oats, flax seeds, and then spices like turmeric, ginger, garlic, cinnamon, even cocoa powder, dill, and teas.
Okay, a whole arsenal there. So let's shift from just lifespan to health span, living well for longer. Brain health is top of mind for so many people. Dementia.
Yeah, and the first thing to really internalize is that dementia, including Alzheimer's, is not an inevitable part of getting old. It's a disease process.
That's crucial. And the old theory about amyloid plaques, it's not the whole story, is it?
Not even close. The amyloid hypothesis led to billions spent on drugs that mostly failed, like a 99.6% failure rate. That tells you something's missing.
So what is the story now?
The growing consensus is really what's good for your heart is good for your head. It comes down to blood flow. keeping the arteries clear, including the ones supplying the brain.
Makes sense. So dietary threats are things like,
Saturated fat, oxidized cholesterol, those AGEs, again from high heat meats, they're all linked to cognitive decline and even brain shrinkage. And don't forget smoking and air pollution, also big risk factors for brain health.
okay, so what protects our brains? What should we eat?
Berries. Blueberries and strawberries show real promise. One human trial found a cup of blueberries a day improved certain cognitive functions.
A cup a day. Doable.
Yeah. B vitamins are critical to folate, B12, B6. In people with high homocysteine levels, these vitamins significantly reduced brain shrinkage by half overall and up to 7 times in key areas like the hippocampus.
Sevenfold, wow.
Saffron is another interesting one. 3 separate trials showed it helped with Alzheimer's symptoms.
Saffron, okay. Omega-3s.
Yes, specifically DHA and EPA, often from algae-based supplements for a clean source. They've been shown to improve executive function, reduce brain shrinkage, and increase hippocampus volume in older adults with cognitive impairment.
Algae-based, interesting.
And there's this really striking case study of a 91-year-old man. He had Alzheimer's symptoms, quite severe. Turns out he had mercury poisoning from eating a lot of swordfish. They diagnosed it, he stopped eating the fish, and his symptoms reversed.
Reversed. Alzheimer's symptoms.
Completely reversed. It really makes you wonder how many cognitive issues might have underlying toxic exposures or dietary factors we're missing.
That's incredibly hopeful. And isn't Dr. Ornish doing a trial on this now?
He is, a randomized controlled trial for early Alzheimer's, using the same intensive lifestyle program, plant-based diet, exercise, stress management that famously reversed heart disease and diabetes.
Yeah.
The preliminary results are apparently very promising, suggesting it might be more effective than some of these super expensive new drugs, and without the serious side effects.
That could be absolutely huge.
Yeah.
Okay, moving down the body. Muscles. Sarcopenia. We lose muscle as we age, right?
We do, unfortunately. Muscle mass and strength decline. You can lose about half your muscle fibers by age 80. And the key principle is just unavoidable. Use it or lose it. Even just reducing your daily steps for a short period can cause significant muscle loss, and it's really hard to get back.
So activity is key.
Yeah.
What about protein? People worry about getting enough, especially plant-based.
It's a common concern, but kind of misconception.
Mm.
All essential amino acids, the building blocks, originate from plants and microbes. All whole plant foods contain all essential amino acids, just maybe in different proportions. The only exception is gelatin, which isn't really a whole food anyway.
Okay. And anything specific in plants that helps muscle?
Actually, yes, vegetable nitrates. Found in abundance in leafy greens like kale, spinach, arugula, studies show nitrates can improve muscle strength and physical function, maybe helping to counteract some of that age-related decline.
Greens again. Okay. Bones. Osteoporosis. Big concern, especially for women.
Huge concern. And here, we need to be cautious about some common treatments. Those popular acid reflux drugs, the PPIs, like Prilosec, Nexium, they're linked to a higher risk of hip fractures. Also infections, maybe even cancer and premature death. It's worrying.
Wow. And calcium supplements, aren't they supposed to help?
The evidence is surprisingly weak for hip fracture prevention. Some studies even suggest they might increase risk. Our bodies are actually really good at absorbing more calcium when our intake is lower. We adapt.
So what does help bones, diet-wise?
Well, there's the acid-base balance idea. Meat-heavy diets tend to be acid-forming. It's not that you're literally dissolving your bones, but a high dietary acid load, typical in Western diets, is linked to higher hip fracture risk. The way to counter that is with plenty of alkaline-forming foods, fruits, and vegetables. Getting the equivalent of about 9 servings a day can actually increase bone density.
9 servings. Okay. And beyond diet.
Exercise.
Yeah.
Without a doubt, exercise is the single best thing you can do to reduce the risk of falls. And falls are absolutely devastating for older adults.
Right. Preventing the fall is key. Okay. Digestive health. Constipation seems like a really common, miserable issue.
It's incredibly common, yeah, and often goes unreported. It's linked to things like hiatal hernias, which are super rare in people eating plant-based diets, by the way, and also hemorrhoids, varicose veins, often from straining.
So fiber is the answer.
Fiber is absolutely the first-line treatment, just getting enough fiber and fluid. Also, even just 20 minutes of walking a day can help mild constipation. And here's a fun one. Prunes. A study found eating 10 prunes a day worked better than psyllium husk supplements for regularity.
10 prunes.
Okay.
And plant-based eaters generally have better regular.
Oh, yeah. The average is something like 11 bowel movements a week. Things just move along better.
And the gut microbiome, that's huge, right?
Absolutely central to health. And it changes so fast based on diet. Did you know even a single serving of animal products can carry enough antibiotic residues to potentially encourage resistant bacteria in your gut?
Seriously, from one meal.
Potentially, yeah. And there's this issue of protein putrefaction. If animal protein isn't fully digested up high, it reaches the colon where certain bacteria turn it into potentially toxic compounds like hydrogen sulfide, which can contribute to inflammatory bowel disease.
Yikes, so fiber feeds the good guys.
Exactly. Fiber feeds bacteria like Prevotella, which produce those anti-inflammatory short-chain fatty acids we mentioned. Higher fiber intake is just consistently linked to living longer and healthier, what researchers call successful aging. So we want intact grains, legumes where the fiber protects the starch, and lots of colorful plant foods rich in polyphenols, which also act as prebiotics.
Okay, quick hits on urinary health. Overactive bladder, BPH in men.
Yeah, interesting findings here. For overactive bladder, cranberry powder, just half a gram dried powder, worked almost 4 times better than standard drugs in one study, without the side effects.
Cranberry, not just for UTIs.
Apparently not. And for men with BPH, enlarged prostate, the drugs often have nasty side effects, sexual dysfunction, depression risk. Compliance is low. Again, cranberry powder. Just a tiny amount, like 1/8 of a teaspoon daily, significantly improved BPH symptoms compared to placebo.
Cranberry power, okay. Hair and skin aging, what can we do there?
Well, graying hair, Canamintes, seems linked to oxidative stress. Male pattern baldness is largely hormonal testosterone related. There are historical anecdotes about eunuchs not going bald, and even twin studies confirm the hormone link. Female hair loss is often more complex, usually needs a proper workup.
And skin, beyond creams.
Well, cosmetic stuff like fillers have risks, even blindness in rare cases. The #1 proven thing for skin aging and cancer prevention is sunscreen. SPF 30 or higher for everyone.
Sunscreen, got it. Anything else simple?
Drink water. Just getting an extra liter or 2 of water a day can measurably improve skin hydration. Also, watch out for PAHs, those chemicals from grilling or smoking meats. Levels can spike massively after one barbecued meal. Your body clears them, but maybe best to limit exposure. And oddly, very high amounts of certain plants, parsley, parsnips, celery, citrus, contain compounds called furocoumarins that can make your skin more sensitive to sun.
Huh, interesting. Okay, eyes, vision preservation.
Key players here are lutein and zeaxanthin. There are yellow pigments from plants that concentrate hugely in the macula of your eye, like 1,000 times higher than elsewhere. They act like internal sunglasses, protecting the retina, improving vision clarity, contrast, color perception. Best source, dark leafy greens.
Green strike again.
They do. Also, cocoa powder seems to boost blood flow to the brain and eyes, improving contrast sensitivity. For glaucoma, it's back to nitrates from greens. They boost nitric oxide, help regulate eye pressure. Eating greens is linked to less than half the odds of glaucoma.
Amazing. Cataract.
That's mainly oxidative damage. So antioxidants from diet help vitamin C, lutein, zeaxanthin again. But popping isolated antioxidant pills usually doesn't work unless you're truly deficient. Whole foods are key.
Right, the synergy of whole foods.
Yeah.
Okay, hormones and sexual function. This area has a colorful history.
Oh, incredibly so. Wild experiments trying to find a hormonal fountain of youth, irradiated ovaries, glands transplanted from animals. Thankfully, we've moved on. For women, menopause is a big transition. Many women live 1/3 of their lives post-menopause now. Hormone replacement therapy can help symptoms but carries risks: cancer, heart attack, stroke, dementia.
So, alternatives.
Plant-based diets seem to offer the best of both worlds. Women eating this way tend to have significantly fewer bothersome hot flashes and other symptoms, and they also have lower breast cancer risk. Soy foods, for example, 2 servings a day, reduced hot flashes by 20–25% in studies, and soy intake is linked to better survival after breast cancer diagnosis.
Soy gets a bad rap sometimes, but that sounds positive. What about men? Testosterone.
Testosterone does decline with age, but a lot of that drop is actually due to obesity and chronic diseases, not just aging itself. And testosterone therapy often doesn't deliver on promises for better cognition, vitality, or physical function. For erectile dysfunction, ED, lifestyle is huge. Pesticide exposure matters. BPA from plastics, which we mostly get from diet, matters. Lifestyle changes really have to come first.
Anything specific food-wise for ED?
Nuts. One study found just 1 serving of veggies plus 2 or more servings of nuts a week cut ED risk by 50%. Another study specifically used pistachios 3 or 4 handfuls a day for 3 weeks, significantly improved blood flow and erection firmness.
Pistachios, okay. So pulling this all together, this
Yeah.
lifestyle symphony. Caloric restriction comes up a lot in animal studies.
It does. The idea is that maybe 3 meals a day plus snacks is new for humans, evolutionarily speaking. In animals, restricting calories shifts cells into a protective, repair-focused mode. Less free radical damage, less inflammation, more efficient mitochondria, like tuning up your cellular engines.
Does it work in humans?
The calorie trial showed even modest restriction, about 12% fewer calories, had benefits for normal weight people, improving aging markers. Often, restricting calories naturally leads to eating healthier foods too. But big caution, extreme prolonged fasting is risky. Muscle loss, including heart muscle, refeeding syndrome, not something to play around with lightly.
Right. What about just restricting protein, not overall calories?
That seems to be a really key part of it. The long-lived Okinawan's traditionally got only about 9% of their calories from protein. Methionine, an amino acid higher in animal proteins, seems to directly impact longevity pathways. Plant-based diets are naturally lower in methionine.
And even small shifts matter.
Hugely. Just swapping 1% of daily calories from animal protein to plant protein that's tiny, maybe 5 grams, was linked to significantly fewer health problems over 8 years. Swapping 5% was linked to a 20% lower risk of dying from dementia. Small changes add up.
Wow. Okay, what about NAD plus boosters? They get a lot of hype. NMN, NR.
Yeah, NAD+ is a vital molecule. Levels decline with age, and boosting it shows benefits in animal models for almost every organ system: brain, heart, muscles. There was that incredible mouse study where boosting NAD+ made an old mouse's muscles function like a young one's again.
So should we all be taking NR or NMN supplements?
Well, it's tricky. Getting the boosters into the right tissues is a challenge. And while supplements can raise NAD+ levels in the blood, many human trials, especially for NR, haven't shown significant real-world benefits for things like muscle strength or inflammation. The jury is still very much out on translating those amazing mouse results to humans via supplements.
So lots of promise, but maybe not quite ready for prime time in pill form.
That seems fair. It highlights the gap between lab findings and human reality sometimes.
So when you look at all this evidence, decades of research, billions spent trying to find an anti-aging drug,
Right.
where does it lead us?
It leads us back to something remarkably simple, really. The so-called trillion-dollar pill for healthy aging. It's not a pill at all. It's effectively found in the produce aisle or, at the gym or getting good sleep.
Like that old quote you found.
Yeah, from a geriatric medicine textbook over 65 years ago. It said, basically, that preventing degenerative diseases through good nutrition seemed like the most promising path to longer life. They knew it back then. Diet is probably the single most powerful tool we have that we can actually control day to day. And the data shows it's the #1 determinant of how long and how well we live.
Which makes the situation in places like the U.S. even more striking, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Spending the most on healthcare, yet life expectancy is falling behind other nations.
It's a paradox, and sources point squarely at lifestyle choices, often fueled by widespread misinformation about diet and health. That's why things like the True Health Initiative are so important, experts uniting to provide clear, evidence-based guidance against all the noise and fake facts.
So the bottom line from this deep dive,
The science is just incredibly consistent. A lifestyle built around whole plant foods, plus regular movement, good sleep, managing weight. That's the core strategy. It's the most powerful, accessible approach we have for healthy aging, for longevity, for preventing disease across the board.
and these aren't just small effects.
Yeah.
We're talking about things like comparing processed meat's impact to secondhand smoke or nuts potentially adding years to your life. These are fundamental changes.
Exactly. They have profound impacts. The evidence is truly overwhelming when you look at it all together.
So maybe the final thought for everyone listening.
Yeah, perhaps it's this. We have this mountain of evidence showing lifestyle, especially diet, is the primary driver of our health destiny. We also see powerful forces, financial, institutional, that sometimes obscure this truth. So the question becomes, what responsibility do we each have, now that we know this, to kind of get back to our roots, our edible roots, and take charge of our own health narrative, and maybe help reshape it for those around us too?